Hello guys, and welcome to the White Rabbit Trading Channel. Before we begin, please take a moment to read the disclaimer below. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor and everything here is for educational purposes only. Alright, let's dive in. Previously, we were looking at the daily chart and discussed what needed to happen to open up the possibilities for continuation to the upside. The key point was that the daily candle should close positively and, in the best case scenario, above the 95K mark around the average gain. This is exactly what happened that day. I was also watching for a potential continuation if the current level held, and as we can see, it did. We saw a retest, and now Bitcoin is moving in a choppy upward channel, bringing us to the current price levels. Let's start by taking a look at today's daily stats and levels. Wednesday tends to close slightly more negatively, with a historical tendency of about 54% of the time closing in the red. The average loss for Wednesdays is around 1.85%. Of course, these numbers fluctuate over time as new data is added, but for now, they stand like this. However, on the days when Wednesday closed positively, it showed an average gain of around 3.29%. This makes Wednesday an interesting day to observe. By the way, this indicator I'm referring to shows the average moves based on historical volatility and how the day ended over time. So, if a day is bearish, the close tends to be around the average loss percentage. If there's more volatility, the price might even hit the maximum loss percentage. On the flip side, if the day is bullish, it typically closes around the average gain percentage. It's important to understand that these are average moves, so the day won't always close exactly at these numbers, but more often than not, price tends to move within this range. This also means that if the structure remains bullish, Bitcoin could still drop down to the average loss level during the day and potentially find support there, and still manage to close positively. We've seen examples of this before. This makes the stats very useful for day traders as a confluence tool. Now, let's look at the key levels for today. On the 1 hour and 4 hour time frames, Bitcoin is still showing a local uptrend. But remember, in any uptrend, we need to see a series of higher highs and higher lows to confirm continuation. After the high is formed, the next step would be to see if the market forms a higher low, followed by another higher high. That's when we can start managing risk based on how price reacts at those key levels. At the moment, if price continues to move up from here, I personally don't have an entry. Unless you're trading on really low time frames. Based on the structure I'm watching, I would prefer to see a pullback first. Ideally, somewhere between the mid-range or slightly below the current move. But for that, I need to see a confirmed local high, which we don't have yet. That's why I'm staying patient and waiting to see what the market does over the next few hours. Now let's talk about support levels. First, we have Monday's high and the previous day's equilibrium in the local range. For those unfamiliar, the previous day's equilibrium is the 50% level of the prior day's range. It often acts as support or resistance, especially when it aligns with other confluences. So, I will be watching for any reactions around this level and potential lower timeframe structure changes. Below that, we have a breaker block, which is simply a previous resistance level that can now turn into support. We also have the average loss level in this same area. So, if price comes down and shows signs of strength, for example, CVD absorption or bullish divergence, I'd like to get involved here. But if I don't see a strong reaction, I'll wait, as there are more levels below to consider. One of those levels is the yearly open, along with the previous range lows that acted as support before. Even further down, there's a significant order block that could be a key support zone if price moves lower. When price taps these levels, there's always a possibility that it won't manage to break back above the previous resistance levels. That's why, if I see a deeper retrace, I'll be de-risking on the way back up, especially around those prior resistance levels. If Bitcoin claims those levels again, then those positions could turn into runners. Now let's talk about the upside levels. We have a breaker block slightly above the current price, and right there we also find the average gain level. Looking at the broader range, this area acts as a support/resistance flip level. For now, it's still acting as resistance, so it's crucial to watch how price reacts here. If Bitcoin breaks out above this level and holds, that would be bullish. But until that happens, it remains a key resistance level, which can provide a reaction and lead to a retrace. That's why I'll be watching for signs of weakness at that level. So, with that said, my plan for today is simple. If price moves down first, I'll be watching for a reaction at the support levels mentioned earlier. If those levels hold and show strength, I'll be looking for a long setup. If those levels fail, I'll be watching the lower levels for the next potential support. On the other hand, if price moves up first, I'll be watching for a reaction at the resistance levels mentioned earlier. If I see weakness there, I'll look for a short setup and then watch for a retrace to the support levels below. And based on what we see today, we'll adjust for tomorrow and potentially into Friday's session. There's also news today, so keep in mind that volatility could increase. Make sure to manage your size and risk wisely to avoid getting caught on the wrong side of a sudden move. Lastly, let's check momentum. On the 12-hour time frame, Bitcoin would need to close below 89K to cross the momentum indicator to the downside. For now, that seems unlikely, but we know anything can happen. On the 6-hour time frame, momentum is at the highs. The 4-hour time frame has recently turned down after hitting its first pivot point. It would need to close above 96,700 to cross back up into bullish control. The 2-hour and 1-hour time frames are also pointing down for now, as long as Bitcoin stays below 97,300 on a closing basis. So, we need to see what happens over the next few hours. If we get a retrace and a momentum reset, and if the reaction at support is strong, it could turn things back up. But until then, I'll wait and watch how the key levels react. That's it for today's update. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'll keep you updated as the market develops. Until then, trade safe, and I'll see you in the next one.